Celtics Beat is brought to you by the Game Time app.
What's up, everyone? Welcome in a new Celtics Beat just before Ev heads off on vacation, but we wanted to make sure we got this thing in so he doesn't miss any shows because he likes to be with you. Evan Valenti, I am Adam Kaufman. Our guest today, I guess, Ev, we're just keeping it in the Boston Globe family because we recorded just a few days ago with Gary Washburn, and now we've got another friend of ours and a coworker of his, Adam Himmelsbach, back with us on the show. Last week, it was a lot of conversation surrounding the circus that has been Jaylen Brown's life of late, and this totally, at least when the news broke, unexpected looming sale of the Boston Celtics. We will touch on some of those things here in this show as well. We won't rehash all of it. We'll try and bring you up to speed, update it a little bit. Jaylen's life has only gotten just a touch crazier. And of course, all that is going on with Team USA in the Paris Olympics rapidly approaching. But Himmelsbach, welcome, buddy. It's good to see you. How you enjoying the offseason, such as it is?
Yeah. So the question I get most often about my job is, well, what do you do when the off season is? Don't you have something? I'm like, the off season is a lot shorter than you would think, especially with the Celtics over the years. But there's always something going on, it feels like.
I mean, this year's particularly unusual, not only because obviously Boston played as long as possible and won the championship, but the move right into the Olympics. So in a normal year, and even if you want to say Boston plays into mid-June, but a normal year being no Olympics, how often, like how long can you actually unplug, before sort of dialing back in? Like the Al Horford, I'm going to take 2 weeks off of basketball and then get back in the gym equivalent. What does that mean for Himmelsbach?
Yeah, and in the NBA, August is usually your go-to month, and it still kind of will be. But typically, you get through the season. It's crazy to think about the days of the Celtics not making the playoffs. Like those seasons end for those teams like April 14th. Like that's an eternity ago. But for a team like the Celtics that plays so long, and it looks like they're going to be playing deep into June for the next couple of years. You go to free agency or the draft, I guess, first, then free agency, then summer league. And then when you get back from summer league, that's usually the time, like you take a couple of days, right, whatever you have left over, and then you have like a month to actually chill. The only thing doing that was when they traded for Kyrie. I was actually on vacation when they traded for Kyrie because that was like mid-August, like very unusual.
Yeah, same. I was in Delaware when that happened, and all of a sudden the phone starts blowing up. And I'm sorry, the Celtics did what? How long have you been on the beat at this point? I'm trying to remember.
It's gonna make me sound old, but I am old. It'll be 10 years in January.
So you've been through all stages of the rebuild then at this point. So that's good. That means that's relevant to the question that I wanted to ask. Is now that obviously the Celtics are where they are, where I mean they're so locked in when it comes to the economics of this team, free agency isn't all that interesting compared to the July 4ths surrounding Horford or Hayward or Durant chase and some of those things, or even the draft where it's, what's Boston going to do at number 3 when obviously it went with Brown and then Tatum after the trade back from one, all of that. Now it's like Celtics fans generally, and no disrespect obviously to Baylor Shireman or Anton, what is it? Watson said it, Ev? Is that right? He's not going to be around anytime soon.
I was going to say,
when we talk about those,
you just talked about him like 2 minutes ago.
I know. Well, that's how meaningful he is to me. When we talk about those guys, like generally speaking, the draft is just not that interesting right now. If you're a Celtics fan, and free agency, like I said, not that interesting. So does it sort of change the whole perspective for you from a coverage standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, there's no, like you mentioned, the years of all the lottery picks and not only having them, but also having future options that could make a deal likely. It was frenetic. And there was Danny Ainge, who just, as we know, like, especially on draft night, a lot didn't happen necessarily on draft night. He was always looking for a big move. But yeah, now, like, I watched the draft, but, we previously, like, let's say they lose in the first round of the playoffs, which those early teams did. Then you spend the next couple of weeks, like, going to draft workouts. I left that out, what I just said to you a minute ago. But, like, the Celtics invite you in. There's like 6 prospects there. You interview them, and then you leave. You're like, what was the point of that? I'm like, there's almost no chance this guy's going to end up on this team, but you're asking them all the questions. Oh, what would it be like to be a Celtic? Oh, it'd be an honor. I would love to play for this team one day. Draft workouts, the more I think about it, are just the worst. So thankfully, we don't have to do those because when the team is in the deep in the playoffs, your focus is on the team being deep in the playoffs. But yeah, that's cut out, and then so because of that, you have definitely less awareness of who the prospects are.
Well, so needless to say, life is much more fun now. And like I said, there's a lot going on with this team that really doesn't concern basketball. Why don't we just touch on the ownership situation, because I don't want to spend much time on it. As it was, we didn't spend a lot of time on it either with Gary because there's so many unknowns to this. But anything that you know, that you sense, that you feel, whatever the right word may be, outside of obviously what's been reported so far about sort of when all of this is going to come to a head and whether it does in fact stay in the Celtics family, meaning Steve Pagliuca winds up being the guy and buying out the Grossbeck family.
Yeah, like you mentioned, really nobody knows at this point. It's so early in the process. The only thing that's like really on the record and is known is, like you mentioned, Steve has put it out there. He put it out there within hours that he's interested in becoming the new majority owner. And look, he has obviously a great relationship with Wick, great relationship with his family. It would be logical, but what's to say someone comes over the top with an extra $1 billion in their offer? You know, how much are you gonna be like, oh, well, we had such a great partnership with Steve. That's true. An extra $1 billion is also pretty great. So they're going to look at all their options. The sense I get talking to people, and they alluded to this a little bit in the release, is by the end of the year, the calendar year, there's a hope that they'll at least have kind of a person or a group in place. And then the process will go from there, which it'll be a lengthy process even after they've decided who it's going to be.
Yeah, it was weird. It just seemed like when we don't know a lot. It's kind of what makes this sort of a tough topic to talk about. But one of the things that was
actually our motto of the show: we don't know a lot.
We don't know a lot.
Yeah, anyway. Change the name of the show.
The game's made up and the points don't matter. Okay. But it seemed like the consensus from some people was, oh, they must already know who they're selling it to if they're going to, as you said, they're going to try and have this thing wrapped up by the end of the calendar year here. Do you get that sense from them when you talk to people around this thing? Or is it really like, this is just time and it couldn't be any better. Timing could be better. Irv wants to get out. There's a lot of estate planning needs to happen here. So that's really mostly what drives this. Not like, hell, we already have someone in mind. This is going to be real simple and real easy.
Yeah. No, I've gotten no indication from anyone that there is a bidder lined up and that this is just like a formality. I really get the sense it's going to be an open process and they're eager to see how it goes. Like, it's kind of a cool thing, really. Like, they got this team 2002, what was it, 360 million? I always get the exact number wrong, but it's not a bad return on investment, right? Like in 22 years. But yeah, I don't get the sense there's any kind of like handshake deal or anything like that. Like, they're going to see who's out there. And it's going to look, it's like, this is an obscene amount of money. Our Mike Silverman published a story today, basically said there's a lot of billionaires now in this world, but there's only a few, like Jeff Bezos, who could just be like, yeah, I'm going to buy the Celtics. Even the billionaires, right, for a $5 billion purchase, need other billionaires involved.
Right.
So it's going to, you have to create these groups, figure out who's going to own how much. Like, there's a lot that has to happen. And, we say the end of the calendar year, like, it's just mid-July. Like, 6 months seems like a logical time frame to me.
Have you heard, and I don't necessarily believe this to be a reality, but I'm asking because it's social media fodder and it's something people like to talk about. Like, in all likelihood, as you alluded to, it's going to be a billionaire that swoops in, or Saudi money, or we'll see. Obviously, in a perfect world, it is maybe Pagliuca. I think Celtics fans would root for it to, quote unquote, stay in the family. But there are so many people that are somewhat high profile who are, big Celtics fans, whether it's, David Portnoy, Barstool, Donnie Wahlberg, we know what he's achieved. Matt Kalish, who's one of the co-founders of DraftKings, is a season ticket holder and he's at every game. Like, there are so many people that individually obviously could not go and put in a bid for the Boston Celtics. But do you see any of these types of people who are, really front facing, trying to put a group together to, try and actually make this happen? Or is that just so far out of the realm economically of being plausible?
I mean, if you're talking about percentages, nothing's out of the realm. Like if you're ownership group and you're like, hey, it'd be cool to have a kind of a face of this. You're not going to be, a majority owner, but we can be like, hey, look at this person we're adding to our potential ownership group. But I have no idea, who has interests, who would potentially like know because you got to know the right people. You're not just going to randomly like the names you mentioned. Just make a quick call. Hey, can I get in with you guys? The one thing I have found talking to these people in this industry over the years, like relationships are huge. So it's most scenarios, it's either going to be like someone or like a friend of a friend type of thing. Where people this is a massive investment. Like it's obviously like fun kind of toy department thing, but it's gonna be a massive investment for somebody, and you're not gonna kind of take that lightly.
Yeah, I mean,
right, what do you say? Let's.
You got $5 billion, Kaufman. I don't have that in my checking account, unfortunately.
I've been saving, trying to, really like the kids don't need to go to college. I could put my funds.
You got a diverse portfolio.
They'd understand. Yeah,
you seem like a diverse portfolio type of guy.
You got some bobbleheads behind you. Sell some of those things.
Yeah, I mean, what's the going rate for opened out of package bobbleheads? I have Mac Jones right here. Everybody see that? That's I'm sure worth a fortune.
In a Patriots uniform for sure.
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, are the Mac Jones Jacksonville bobbleheads even available yet? Because obviously I've got to have one when they are. Game Time, who of course powers this show. Game Time, it makes getting tickets even faster, even easier. Prices on the Game Time app, they actually go down, if you didn't know this, closer to tip-off with basketball or whatever it may be. And with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, which I know I care about, my kids definitely care about, the lowest price guarantee. It's all significant in Game Time. It has it all. Just makes it easy for you. It takes the guesswork out of buying any type of ticket. And there are definitely different times that you could hop in. There are last minute deals. You could save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, which I love. Gotta love going to see stand up, theater, whatever it may be. Flash deals kind of in the same vein. You could save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of a game or an event. Get this too, lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of.
How do you lose?
You don't. I mean, it's like free money. Let me tell you. Take the guesswork out of it. Buy tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem the code. It is CLNS. That is CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets. Lowest price. Guaranteed. All right, let's get to the Jaylen Brown stuff. And, we don't need to sort of rehash everything that we touched on last week with the sort of political element, certainly in his opinion, definitely in Gary's opinion. And I share that opinion of him being left off of Team USA. And we did the whole, has he been handling things as a poor teammate with his public griping sort of right after the Derek White selection. He just spoke. This is something that is new or has happened since we last recorded. Jaylen obviously spoke out in Vegas in attending some Summer League action, talking about how he reached out to Derek White immediately and that they understand that this is not a personal attack. This is him just venting his frustration and all of that. And then, of course, all of the stuff with lip reading experts out there, seemingly Jaylen criticizing Bronny and all of that stuff that goes nuts on social media. It's just sort of a wild time to be Jaylen Brown, for lack of a better way of putting it. This is me sort of looking for the positive in all of this. I like the element, Adam, of I think it's going to be motivating for him, obviously, to be Eastern Conference Finals MVP, NBA Finals MVP, and yet not be All NBA, not be Team USA. This is stuff that is going to drive him next year. And teams, especially coming off a championship, are always looking for that next thing that's going to be a chip on their shoulder. This works for Jaylen Brown. I think in that sense, it's a good thing. But obviously, on a very deep personal level, he is hurt, he is offended, he is bothered by all of this. Where does it go from here?
I don't really think it goes anywhere. I'm not, and I get players say this, so it's hard to go against it, but I never bought into the whole, like, playing with a chip on your shoulder thing. So you think there's a world where, like, as hard as Jaylen played in the NBA Finals, the conference finals, how incredible he was in the playoffs, now he's going to be pissed. Now you're going to see the real Jaylen. Like,
Sure.
it's not something like he's not going to be on the court 10 seconds left, moment came. All right, this is my time to show they made a mistake. Did it piss him off? Clearly it did. He acknowledged it. He said he's going to have some more to say about it. But I don't think this is something that will like carry over and you'll see after effects into next season. I think if you're a Celtics fan, you feel better about the fact that he really ascended in these playoffs. He was excellent throughout the entire playoffs. I mean, like you mentioned, the fact that he won conference finals and finals MVP, none of us would have guessed that. And he deserved it. Like, there's an argument for Jaylen or Jason in the finals, but my vote would have gone to Jaylen too. Like, on top of everything else, shooting so well, he guarded Luka the entire series. Like, he just had a great playoffs, and he just didn't just play well, but he had like a certain calm about him, and his leadership was really evident. And I think if you're a Celtics fan, you just are looking forward to seeing that Jaylen carry over, as opposed to, oh, let's see the new pissed off Jaylen who didn't play for an Olympic team.
Well, as you said, he alluded to the fact that he's going to have more to say on the matter, but the timing wasn't right. What does that mean? Does it mean like he's going to have like put out an official statement, basically condemning Nike or Team USA selection committee, Grant Hill in particular, or whatever it is? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's hard to tell without asking Jaylen, but it sounded like when he said it sounded like he was referring more to the Nike stuff in particular. Jaylen also, in press conferences, he'll sometimes say some things. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he has a few days to kind of relax, think things over, talk to, his agent, and decide if that's something he's going to do. Maybe he will, but it also wouldn't surprise me if they just kind of move on to the next thing and put it to bed.
It's almost like too much Jaylen Brown at this point in the summer. It's like, hey man, like we love you. Like, you might want to take it easy for a little bit. I do feel bad about the lip reading stuff just because he said that, obviously not thinking every single camera in this room is on me. That's what happens when when you're the finals and the Eastern Conference Finals MVP, you roll into, any game, especially a summer league game, like you're going to get a little bit of attention, which I think is kind of what he's looking for. But at the same time, like, I just feel like maybe taking a step back, letting the world kind of do its thing, and just kind of lay low for a minute. It might be the best advice I could possibly give Jaylen. But at the same time, like, what he said about Bronny James, I'm sure went over real well with Team USA and LeBron, who has obviously a huge hand in picking that stuff out. I'm sure that, that didn't go over too well, but like, he was also like kind of right. Like,
that's what I was going to say. Like, who hasn't had that discussion with their buddies over the past month? I don't think Bronny's a pro. I've said it. Like, there's people who said it. Like, I don't think Bronny's a pro. So he said it, and he owned it. I don't know if you guys saw, he quote tweeted it yesterday, basically, and he didn't deny it. Like, he wasn't like, I didn't say that. He just kind of said, oh, I have a lot of respect for whatever LeBron. It's really cool to have an opportunity. He earned this opportunity to like play with his son. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but
like, it's having your kid in the league is the ultimate flex or whatever exactly, however he put it. But yeah, it wasn't some horrendous thing to be like, I don't think this 55th overall pick who averaged 4 points a game at USC is an NBA player. Like, and finally just scored his first summer league points as well.
Yeah, I mean, you feel bad for Bronny at that point, because it's like every time you step on the floor, everything's gonna be about your play. Like, no matter what happens, especially if you're bad, everybody's just gonna talk about how bad you are. You look at that game from last week. What was it? Technically, like Monday, I think. Was it Monday or Sunday? I don't know. Days are just molding together. But like, you looked at him and like Jordan Walsh, right? Like, in Jordan Walsh sometimes looks like a baby giraffe, has no idea where any of the limbs are going. But then at certain points, like, wow, this guy's awesome at defense, and I definitely there's something here. But you watch Bronny and you're like, I don't know what the appeal is. I mean, he hustles. I give him credit. Like, he broke up an alley-oop, I think intended for Jordan Walsh from J.D. Davison. But like, other than that, I never thought at any point about like, wow, Bronny James really showed me something today. Like, it just didn't happen that way. So again, when you're sitting courtside, you're having a casual conversation with your girlfriend, just being like, hey, well, I don't know if they're dating, but they're happy to be together all the time now. So I'm just throwing it out there. But it's like, hey, we're having a casual conversation about what's happening in front of me. And maybe Jaylen's at that sort of fame, guys. Maybe Jaylen's like, no matter what, Jaylen's the point of he says something, it's just all of a sudden newsworthy. Or that's more of an indication of where we're at in the summer with the content machine that we all sort of like feed into. Literally anything we can grab onto, we're going to make a big deal out of it. I don't know if it's one or the other.
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
aggregation culture.
yeah, it's like I said, I feel like it's that the Bronny thing isn't that serious. If Jaylen's going to come out and take a major like political stand against Nike, that'll be interesting to see. I'll be curious to see what he has to say. Curious if Nike reacts. But to say what basically everyone else is saying while sitting watching a game and someone catches you on camera, it wasn't like he said something like defamatory about Brian James. He said, "I don't think he's a pro." Okay.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like you said, something that we've all said at this point in time. I do want to get into some Team USA stuff. You'll be heading to the Paris Olympics, which is, it's got to be a pretty cool experience, something I'm sure you're looking forward to. But before we get into that, obviously you haven't been in Vegas as a result of the fact that you're going there. But what, sort of tuning in from afar, there's a lot of, I won't say hype, excitement. How about that around Baylor Shireman and what kind of role he actually could play on this team? In the little that you've seen or just talking to people about him, do you feel like he's a rotational player here?
It's hard to say that just because. So I feel like he's an NBA rotational player. I don't know if that means he's a rotational player on this championship team that's bringing its entire top 9 guys back. So,
Right.
Will he have a chance to earn that? I'm sure. He's shown some things early on. There's a reason the Celtics drafted him. He's a first-round pick, like the first-round pick of the Brad Stevens era. So he'll have opportunities. And if there's one thing about the Celtics team, and they did it last year, I expect them to do it even more this year, is they did a much better job this past season of focusing in on the playoffs, gearing everything toward the playoffs. Obviously, sitting Al on back-to-back, sitting Kristaps. If a guy's fingernail is hurting, all right, sit out tonight. You're fine. So I anticipate them to do that even more this coming year. So when that happens, if you have a random night when 3 guys are sitting, he'll get some opportunities, and that's your chance to kind of show what you can do.
He's going to be spoon-fed opportunities too, which is the best part. It's like, yeah, he's right now playing on a team, J.D. Davison and Jordan Walsh, and maybe Anton Watson's playing with him, or Jamias Ramsey's out there. Like, yeah, he's going to be asked to do some certain things for the Summer League team that he's not going to be asked to do when he plays for the Celtics. It's like, hey, man, go stand in the corner over there and just knock down your open threes, and that's all we're going to have to worry about here. It's like he's going to be playing on the floor with 3 guys that are on Team USA right now. So it's like, hey, man, like, yeah, get comfortable with this team, get used to, shooting off the catch or shooting off the dribble or shooting off curls or pin downs or, get used to doing that and the NBA floor and NBA spacing and obviously with the basketball, but what he's doing now and trying to like run the show a little bit because he has done a little bit of that. You're not going to do that at all when you get to the big league roster, man. You're going to just have to sit over there and just knock down the open ones and you're going to be just fine. Guard your yard, knock down open shots. And I don't know about you two, but I think he has shown the ability to do definitely one of those 2 things at a very high level. We'll see about the defensive stuff, but I think he's going to fit in fine. It's just a matter of there's minutes for him. It's like with Hauser and with Payton Pritchard, like those 2 guys specifically who had to sit and wait to earn playing time. And then this year, their number was called upon a lot, and those guys produced the biggest moments. So if like you're Baylor Shireman, as you sit there and look at some guys on your roster already, like, all right, I just got to follow that track and we'll be just fine. Like Payton got paid last year, got his extension. Hauser's going to get paid dramatically as soon as he feels like it. He could sign an extension, I think, with the Celtics now, or wait till free agency, which is probably what he should do, and get locked up for a much bigger number. But I mean, the fact that Shireman's on a team with 2 guys that have come through what he's going to go through right now would be a pretty positive thing for me, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, again, this is we talked about this when we had Matt Peralta on to sort of break down the draft pick at the time. Clearly, these guys are not remotely the same player, type of player, role, anything like that. But I just think that with Porzingis missing probably half the season, it's going to open up a lot of opportunity for a variety of guys, including someone like Shireman, who is really, despite being sort of, I think he's listed as a guard, played a lot of wing, but played a ton of power forward. He's an excellent rebounder. He's a big guy, not Porzingis big, but a big guy. I just think he's going to get some run because they are going to there's going to be no rushing Porzingis. Even when he does come back, he's not going to play more than anyone feels comfortable with him playing. I know Cornette is back, and so he'll have opportunity. Tillman, same story. But Horford is, I feel like we have this conversation this time every year the last few years, but this guy he's going to be yet another year older. He's not going to be playing back-to-backs. He's going to be missing considerable time. Even when he does play, the minutes he's going to be at 25, maybe. So I just think, again, whether it's Shireman or sort of filtering down the depth chart to some of these other guys, like more of a role for Hauser, Pritchard, and so forth, I think these guys are all going to get some run. But Himmelsbach, again, you're going to be heading overseas and getting ready for the Olympics. You've already spent some time with Team USA and the Celtics trio there. Sorry, Jaylen, but Tatum and Holiday and White. These guys have been playing pretty well in their just sort of warm-ups, tune-ups that they've been playing so far. What's the attitude around this team, the feel of these guys in particular, and clearly how they fit? None of them are starting, which is fine, but all play their role. I sort of feel like on social media, they're not that it's any surprise to those of us that watch the Celtics night in, night out, but league-wide, it feels like there's a greater appreciation of Jason Tatum and all the things that he does well.
Yeah, and you said they're not starting. Like Steve Kerr said a few times, he's using these exhibitions to try things out. I don't think he's even decided on a starting lineup yet. It wouldn't surprise me at all. Jason or even Jrue gets a nod there. But yeah, they were out, and I was out in Vegas with them for about 4 days when they started training camp. Obviously, Derek wasn't on the team yet, so he was not there. And Jason missed the first few days. He signed his extension here in Boston, and then had another personal issue. But these players are like, the cool thing is like looking at kind of the last hurrah, it feels like LeBron, Steph, KD, these guys that have really just carried the league for over a decade, all teaming up really for the first time together. And, it's Paris, like guys just seem really, I don't want to say, I'm sure when the game starts, they'll be like locked in, but they just seem really like honored to be with each other. Like they all have such respect for each other. And that came across, like even LeBron saying, yeah, I look up. One day we're walking into the gym and that's what it was. Someone snapped a picture of them, like, a wire service photo. And it was of them all walking into the gym together. And he's like, I look up and there's me and there's Steph Curry, there's Kevin Durant, and there's Kawhi Leonard when Kawhi was still on the team. He's like, it felt like, we were going to like AAU practice when we were 17, and that's kind of how the vibe of it. But they're really just enjoying this very rare chance that's realistically is not going to happen again with that top group. And then for the Celtics players, like obviously, Jason won a gold medal last games. Jrue Holiday did as well. You add Derek. It's just pretty cool. Like there's 12 guys on this team, and 25% of them are Celtics. And obviously, it's just a great experience, high-level basketball. There's things like I talked to Tyrese Halliburton in Vegas, and he was like, you know what, I'm looking forward to most of all is being around Jrue Holiday out here. I'm like, why? With all these big names, why Jrue? He's like, man, he's really the best defender I've ever seen, and I just want to like learn things from him and pick his brain. So the opportunity for things like that, like I don't know who. Whatever, Drew's been around for a while, but I'm sure the things Derek's going to be watching and just the way the best of the best carry themselves and prepare and maybe how they handle their post game. So I think it'll be nothing but beneficial for three Celtics.
Yeah, that was one of the interesting things that came out recently about I think it was Jaden Springer said it after his big game one Summer League performance, and then he wasn't playing the second game of how valuable being around Jrue Holiday every day is. Then I think J.D. Davison backed that up as well. It's like, there's so many things that happen behind the scenes, behind closed doors at practice and things that we don't see, where Tatum calls Al Horford the best teammate he's ever had. And, to your colleague's point, we've had Gary Washburn on this show, I don't know, Adam, pretty much consistently every year since you've taken over the show. And one of the things he's always pounded the table for is like, we got to have more vets on this team. You know, you got to have more guys that've been around a while, whether it's on the coaching staff or on the team itself. It feels like Jrue Holiday, for at least the guards on this team, is like the guy to talk to. I get Kaufman. I don't know if they have a better guy on the team. Like I undersold the Jrue trade when it happened. I was a little nervous about it. Obviously, I was an idiot and I was completely wrong. He was perfect. But the other part of that is like how influential he can be on younger guys, and to hear that from Halliburton to be like, yeah, out of all these guys, Steph, LeBron, AD, and all these, yeah, the guy I want to talk to the most is Jrue Holiday. Like that's such a luxury to have, and like we talk about all the other things that Jrue Holiday brings to the table. Like defensively, he's like just the most unique player they've had in quite some time. But like the stuff, like the IQ stuff, the history stuff for me is really interesting. So like to hear some people talk about that's I mean it's super beneficial. And like Tatum's talked about being on Team USA before too, where he's like I get to learn how to wake up and how to get my started with my day and like how to focus early on in the day, like all that stuff. It's super beneficial. But I don't know. I guess this is the stuff that you hear when all these guys get together, and I guess I'm super thrilled that these three guys have the opportunity because. It's rare, right? Like how often are you going to be on the same team as Steph Curry ever in your life? For these guys, none of them ever in the history of their careers, unless Steph goes ring chasing. So at that point, maybe Boston, gets him to climb aboard for a year. But I love all this stuff that comes out about how the younger guys look up to the older guys, and especially with Holiday. And I don't know, Kaufman, did you factor that into the equation when you were thinking about acquiring Jrue Holiday back a year ago?
His leadership, his Team USA sort of veteran experience.
I didn't think about it at all.
Which aspect?
No, that.
Yeah, I think you and I were this is either a detriment to both of us or praising both of us, but I would say that you were ahead of the curve, definitely ahead of me when it comes to like what Derek White could be for Boston this year in particular. With Marcus Smart being sent away, but I was probably higher between the two of us on the Jrue Holiday acquisition. It's just for me, bringing in Holiday sort of completed a puzzle that didn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, people who listen to the show remember, I'm sure that I didn't love the Smart Porzingis trade, but it wasn't so much because of either of those guys individually, although I didn't love trading away Smart when it could have been Malcolm Brogdon. It was more all right, now I feel like you've sort of gone excess on bigs and you're light on guard, and what does this look like defensively, and da-da-da-da-da. And if they had opened the season like that and played the season like that, I would have been very skeptical about the roster makeup. But as soon as they acquired Jrue Holiday, that to me it buttoned all of that up. It closed all those loopholes. And so, yeah, I think he's excellent. And he's, obviously now he's a two-time champion, but coming in, he was the only one that had won a title and brought a certain level of experience and poise and locker room leadership and all of that stuff that a lot of these guys, were missing, I think, in their lives when it came to a deep playoff run. And obviously we saw what happened in year one, whether that was the path and all of that, or it was the impact of guys like Holiday, or all of the above, which is probably what it really is. But when it comes to all of that, Himmelsbach, and sort of looking ahead to running it back, because as you alluded to before, all the top 9 are coming back. There have been no significant changes to this roster at all, which if you are a proponent to running back a championship team that was light years ahead of the rest of the NBA, you're a happy camper. But did this team, in your mind, need anything outside of whatever repeating motivation that Joe Mazzulla seems to be filled with based upon the stuff that's being written about with him right now?
Yeah, I mean, they're limited in what they can do, first of all. But second of all, no. Like, they just marched through one of the most dominant seasons in NBA history. Like, I don't think everybody necessarily even grasps that. To win 64 games and then roll through the playoffs and losing 3 times. Like, why would you tinker with that? And it's just such a switch. Like, basically any other year, there were some years that they wanted to make more significant moves and didn't, and fans were furious. Any other year, you announce, hey, bringing the same group back, fans here would have lost their mind. But now there's a sense of like, it's comforting now. It's like, oh, wait a minute, we have all those guys back again who are now have like, maybe a little more chemistry and now a little more comfort on the biggest stage. Like now, you can count on Sam Hauser and Payton Pritchard in NBA Finals games. Nothing's going to be new to this group anymore. And they've won it and seen what it takes after missing against the Warriors 2 years ago. Like that has to feel great if you're a fan. There's no other way to really look at it.
With Pritchard obviously being part of the select team and scrimmaging obviously against all those guys that we were talking about before, I know he's done stuff like this before, and we're always, this time of year, we're generally talking about like pro-am Payton Pritchard, but for him to be doing it on this stage, this level, that kind of talent around him on the other side, I just feel like we're in such a different position than we were in even 1 year ago with Payton Pritchard in terms of his role in the Celtics, his comfort in Boston, the contract. Again, he is a champion now, and he's getting married soon. All of this stuff. Is this Payton truly at his high point right now?
Yeah, I had a chance to speak to him in Vegas, and it was like the most Pritchard thing. Like I asked a question, kind of like you just alluded to. I was like, oh, it's pretty cool to be, out there like scrimmaging against LeBron and Steph. And it was like the most Payton answer. He was like, man, I just love playing basketball. He's like, I don't care who it's against. It could be anyone. But yeah, it's an honor and everything. But like more than anything, he just wants to be out there. You're not going to see any like stargazing from Payton Pritchard. And that's why fans love him. He's just like, he's a bulldog. So he said it was a good experience. He said it'll, some things he'll pick up that he'll take with him. But more than anything, if you like put a ball in front of him and say, hey, there's going to be this, like if you said, hey, there's going to be whatever, the Stoneham Pro-Am is going on next week, he'd probably be out there,
Yeah.
Reminds me of Isaiah Thomas a little bit in that way. But yeah, it's such a swing. And of course, everyone remembers his trade requests and not just his trade requests, but then being like disappointed when he wasn't traded.
Right. And
to see a year and a half later that they kind of just told him and look, like that's part of the reason they didn't, like they knew this wasn't a mystery to them. They knew there was a very good chance they're eventually going to need him and he was going to be a key part of this team, which he became. And that's all he ever asked for. Sometimes people are like, oh, why doesn't Payton Pritchard like the Celtics? Why does he want to be here? All this guy wanted to do was play. He loves everything about being here, except the fact that he wasn't playing. And now he has both. He's certainly in a good spot. And he's looking forward to, like all these guys, he's looking forward to doing it all over again.
I don't know if
you out in the gym practicing his buzzer beaters.
Did you get a chance to ask him about if he still hires guys from the European leagues to guard him one-on-one so he can practice during the summertime, or is Team USA going to be just enough for him? Those scrimmages with.
I did not ask him that, but judging from like his social media and stuff, I don't necessarily think that's in the plans. Like Coffin mentioned, he's got a wedding coming up. But yeah, no, he's locked in, he's ready, and that was the thing. Like when I asked Jrue about everyone coming back. Jrue was obviously at this training camp as well, and Jrue isn't a guy that like shows much emotion. And I was just halfway through my sentence. It was the day Derek and Jason had both signed their extensions, and he like flashed this big smile, which is not, you don't see from Jrue very often. And he's basically like, "Yep, this is pretty great. Like we just won a title, and now we're going to do it again." And Jason, same thing. Like Jason was like, we spoke to him a day later, and he just said, "This is what we wanted. We didn't want changes. We want to bring this group back and show people like last year was no fluke, and we're going to do it again, and we're going to be even louder about it."
Well, for Celtics fans, the next season can't come soon enough. But for Adam Himmelsbach, it's all about the Olympics, and something that a lot of people will get a chance to watch, enjoy, consume all of that in the weeks to come here. Do yourself a favor. I'm sure I'm like the 95th person to say this to you. Try and get out of that hotel room a little bit. Get out of the gym, sightsee, take advantage of your time there. It looks lovely. Can't say I've ever been, but I'd maybe put it on the bucket list one day. Enjoy your trip. Obviously, we'll get you back on here. Hopefully, when the regular season is right around the corner, do our annual preview.
Yeah, I went to Paris once with my family when I was 13, and this is so pathetic, but I need to make up for it. My favorite night there was the night my parents did a date night, and I have two brothers, and we stayed back in the hotel, rented an our movie, The Last Boy Scout. starring Damon Wayans and Bruce Willis. And we got Pizza Hut and McDonald's. That was my best memory of 13-year-old Paris. So I have a lot of like making up to do. Now I'm an adult, so I'm looking forward to it.
Or you could recreate that night.
Well,
Just think about what's
maybe 3 weeks in. Maybe 3 weeks in, after eating like duck and escargot, I will be.
there you go. I had my 13th birthday in Paris.
Oh wow!
Day, and we were part of this travel group at the time, and our nightly activity that night was a show at the Moulin Rouge. So I had my 13th birthday at a can show at the Moulin Rouge. Couldn't have been any better than that. I had a great seat. That's all I will tell you. It was a dinner and a show. It was spectacular.
That's amazing.
Evan Adam had two very different 13th,
Yeah.
13th year
What a
experiences. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, you'd have a very different memory of your time in Paris.
Wasn't bad. I'll tell you, it was not bad.
It
was not bad.
Itching to go back. All right, for Evan Valenti, for Adam Himmelsbach of the Boston Globe, check him out. Check out all his great work. He'll be writing extensively, obviously, about Team USA and the chase for gold. I am Adam Kaufman. We'll be back at you next week. Enjoy and happy betting if you're wagering on this stuff as well. We'll talk to you soon.